Once again, a very warm welcome to all of our attendees, especially on a colder morning as it's starting to get a lot more chilly here in SA. Hope everybody is feeling good this morning, as well as the extended lockdown period is not affecting you too much. If it is, we just hope that in some way we can assist you with some more information, maybe give you a little bit more to do while you are in this lockdown. Obviously, Articulated does have a few online courses, so if you would like to get in touch with them, please just chat to the organizer or go to the Articulate or IOPSA webpage and see if there's any courses that you can currently do. The topic for this morning that we've been discussing, in fact, it is a monthly awareness program on Legionella bacteria. Today, we are going to see if it is preventable and what can we do to prevent the spread of this very dangerous bacteria. In fact, it is making people sick currently, but it can turn into a deadly disease, which is that pneumonia-like disease that we spoke about, Legionnaires disease, which has caused a lot of deaths worldwide. Now, it is increasing, and the fact of the matter is not, it is increasing because of us as humans adapting to the changing situations. We obviously want to save electricity, but are we doing it the right way? So we want to be savvy, we want to do it correctly, but we need assistance from the plumbers, and that is why IOPSA, the Institute of Plumbing South Africa, really has such a great support system for all the plumbers out there. And if you are a member, you would have seen the support that you have been getting, and we want to say thank you to you for the support that you have been giving to us as an institute, as well as myself at OHSS, for all the information that the plumbers are giving to us. So I cannot name everybody by name. There are quite a few hundred of you that are emailing through every week, and I just want to say, please keep it coming. I really do appreciate everybody's feedback. Now, this morning on prevention and how can it be prevented, there are 5 basic principles that we want to discuss this morning on the prevention of the Legionnaire bacteria. The 5 basic principles that we're going to discuss, and we'll have a slide for each of them. In other words, we're just going to keep it very brief. We cannot give you all the information, but next week, Tuesday, with the last Toolbox talk on Legionnaires disease, we are going to give you a handout, a PDF version of the information that we have researched and put into a little bit of a template format risk assessment for you. It is going to cover these 5 basic principles, so please don't feel the need to write them all down or to memorize them off by heart. We will give you that handout next week. So after the Toolbox talk, please don't forget to tune in. And if you need to know any more information, we would love to assist you even further. Just to remind everyone, if you have already got a risk assessment on Legionella, please, you do not have to change it. This is not new information. It's not new legislation. The information that we are getting is from the SANS standards and the SANS codes, and we've done extensive research with the National Institute of Communicable Diseases, who've given us a little bit of research on understanding Legionella bacteria, and then obviously sites like the CDC as well as the WHO. You can also use this information in a COVID-19 risk assessment. Again, if you already have one, you can stick to that. This is not new or suggested from our side that you must use it. It is literally just a guide to assist you in designing your own one. So for those of you who already have one, if you've noticed something that we've chatted about today, perhaps you don't agree with it, or you agree with it, but you feel that we could be more comprehensive, please get in touch with us. Give us the information that you've come up with so that we can share it with all of those out there in the industry. We once again want to say thank you for that, for your feedback. And if you have any additional information, we do appreciate it. We thank you for your criticism, your suggestions, as well as your comments and feedback. So the 5 basic principles that we are going to discuss this morning, firstly, is to identify and assess the source of the risk. Now, for many out there, you understand what this is, root cause or root cause analysis. There are different techniques out there that you can use for RCA, but This is a very basic root cause analysis. It's a very basic risk assessment on the specific schematic systems that you are working with, and we'll get to that in the next slide. Then we need to prepare a risk plan for controlling the risk. We then need to implement, manage, and monitor precautions. We need to have good record keeping of these precautions. And finally, we want to appoint someone who is managerially responsible. Now, this is very important because a person who is in a managerial position to oversee the entire Legionnaire plan is someone who's going to be a decision maker and be able to act on the plan that is being implemented. So let us take us through these 5 basic principles this morning. As we mentioned, it is 30 minutes, so we cannot spend too much time on it, but we're just going to give you a brief overview, and then next week we will give you a bit of a PDF format document, which will go through this a little bit more in detail. Again, it is only a template document, so if you add things, please let us know so that we can have this updated information as well. So identify and assess the source of the risk. And this comes down to a good risk assessment. Now, in front of you, you will see a system schematic. This is going to be unique to every system. Not all systems are going to be identical, which means you have to have a risk assessment for each system that you have in place. So for a building, you could do it by floor. You could do it by hot water, cold water. It all depends on how the system is actually designed. But get the schematics from the plumber or the blueprints of the actual system that you have in place. And then go through your 10 stages of risk assessment. First of all, you need to do an introduction to the risk assessment. What is the actual system that is in place? Do you have an introduction to how this risk assessment is going to be carried out? What type of method are you going to use in order to do the risk assessment? This is very important for the start of any risk assessment because it outlines the methodology of how the risk is actually assessed. And if it is correct, it could be used as a baseline for other companies. Then we have the preface, obviously going to explain not only the methodology from the introduction side, but the preface of what are we going to expect in this risk assessment. We then have a site summary, basically a very brief description of the site that you are currently working with. You will then have your organogram and duties. This is the structure of management and who is responsible for carrying out the actual risk assessment. Then the written scheme of controls. Now this is very important. What type of control measures do you have in place to prevent the spread of Legionnaire's disease? And this could be a scheme of weekly monitoring, monthly monitoring, quarterly, annual, the disinfecting, the cleaning, and we'll chat about that in the next slide as well. Just a basic risk plan of how you're going to go about preventing the spread of this bacteria. You will then have recommended corrective actions. And this is going to be designed by that competent person. Again, we will explain what that means, but this person who is in a managerial position, who understands plumbing as well as risk, will then take time to put in the recommended corrective action. This is obviously going to come from someone who understands how plumbing works, how water flows, and where you can have the biggest dangers, especially when it comes to water tanks or water that is stored on the premises, and then also the water temperatures that each of these stored water systems are going to have in place. This is where your biggest risk of Legionnaire or Legionella bacteria growth is going to be. And this person will then understand how the flow of the water will affect the spread of the bacteria in the actual system. The recommended corrective actions, though, should also form part of your written scheme of controls. So the entire risk assessment itself should be managed by one person, but it will definitely include many other people who understand plumbing as well as risk-based thinking. Then you have a key asset registry. This is all the aspects of the system that need to be inspected. This would include all shut-off valves, water meters, taps, water heaters, geysers, sinks, dryers, washers, anything that you would actually see on the actual system where there is a potential for this bacteria to sit and grow. Now, it's very important then for this key asset registry to be updated as often as possible, especially if your system is constantly upgraded or if it's being changed. Perhaps you're putting in new plumbing. Please ensure that the risk assessment then is also updated as well. A water system survey. This is something that a lot leave out of their risk assessment. The water system survey, again, is done by a qualified plumber with a knowledge and understanding of water flow, how plumbing should be installed correctly, and having hot water pipes and cold water pipes at the right distances with the right type of piping. Depending on the industry or the area we are working in, the piping is going to be different for each application. So please ensure you have a qualified plumber who understands the quality products that need to be installed, as well as the quality installation of the products to give you the best lifetime guarantees or the best output from your actual system that you are using. Remembering it's not just a water system, it's water that is promoting hygiene, cleanliness, as well as health inside a building. And with COVID-19, many people are talking about this topic of disease and illnesses. So water is going to become such a valuable resource. In fact, it already is such a valuable resource to us. And having clean water that is not posing a risk of bacterial infection to us is something even more to be striven after. And then finally, we have the actual risk assessment. This is going to come down to hazards, risks, and what type of control measures are going to be in place. Please ensure you use the same risk matrix for each one of your risk assessments. Try and keep it in an almost a continuous fashion so that your risk assessments look the same, they design the same. That will just help a little bit with continuity. And then finally, you have your system schematic. Very much like the picture you have in front of you. Again, it's going to be the same outline for each schematic, each risk assessment, but the information inside there is going to be specific to the system that you are working on. So we hope that's not too difficult. Again, if you would like these slides, we can send you these slides. This is recorded and placed on the IOPSA YouTube channel. But if you want the information, I can email it to you. Otherwise, next week, you will have this all in PDF format as well. Now, the next thing to look at is the risk plan. What plan are you going to put in place to control the risk? Now, here are 3 suggestions. And we've chatted about this over the past weeks as well. Have a monthly plan in place. Now, what is nice about this is if you are the plumber, you can give this monthly plan with all the documentation to your client to make it a bit more cost effective for them to run this Legionella bacteria plan. Allow them to do the temperature monitoring, the heater inspection just on the outside, just for scaling, for mildew, for mold, for all of that type of thing, just to do a visual inspection. And then the fail-safe test on all thermostatic mixing valves can be done by yourself. Every month you go out there, you can do these inspections. In fact, I know on the thermostatic mixing valve, it can also be tested quarterly, but it really depends on the risk assessment that you are putting in place. Then as a plumber, you can explain what needs to be done with the disinfections and descaling of the actual plumbing that is in place. Now is when you as the plumber need to get involved in your client's risk assessment plan. And this is the annual plan where the water is being tested for clarity and quality, as well as cleanliness from the bacteria, not just Legionella, but any other waterborne disease that is out there. The water storage tanks need to be emptied, disinfected and cleaned properly, and then refilled with clean water. You need to do a full tank inspection. This includes all filters and valves that is on that tank so that you are ensuring the tank itself is clean, but the output through to the system is also maintained and cleaned. Now, in the beginning of the month, you are doing a temperature monitoring. And oftentimes you are going to do the first tap that is closest to the system of where the water is being stored, and the furthest tap that is also stored. Now, especially if you've got a really big system in place, some companies have massive schematic systems in place. So you are just going to check the first and last, or the closest and furthest tap. On an annual basis, though, you need to check the intermittent taps as well. So this type of plan, again, it's just a suggestion. Please use your discretion and go according to what your risk assessment states. Refrain from doing this annually only. Try not to get a risk assessment in place that states that you only have to do all of this on an annual basis. Then it's really not going to become a very effective risk assessment. There needs to be monthly control, even if it is just temperature monitoring and a visual inspection. These types of documents is going to go a long way in the controlling of the risk and the preventing of bacteria, instead of a reactive approach where you realize you do have a problem because you're only inspecting it every year, and then you have to go and clean out the entire system. Having something like this in place may seem like a lot of work, but it is more cost effective down the line by using a prevention program and a monitoring program instead of a reactive, constantly updating a system, constantly cleaning, and constantly wasting the resources of water because you need to clean it. Then we need to implement, manage, and monitor the precautions that you have stated are in your plan. Now, one of the things that many people fail to do is actually have a calendar of the inspections. So we say we need to do it monthly, but when is this done? Is it at the beginning of the month, middle of the month, end of the month? Well, it really depends on you and the schedules that you are putting in place. But if you don't schedule the time, you will overlook it. And this comes down to any other type of risk-based thinking or risk-based applications in any management system. Often what we fail to do is put down a calendar and we try and remember it. It's on a to-do list, and the to-do list, just gets prioritized every day. Number 1, 2, and 3 gets done, but number 4 to 10 didn't get done today, so we move it over to tomorrow. The problem is additional items have come up that may take more priority, and eventually that number 10, which is inspecting the plumbing, might not come up for some time. So what we are saying is get the needed help. Find a qualified plumber who can assist you, but schedule a calendar with a reminder of when these need to be done. This will go a long way in the management of the entire precautions that need to be put in place. And then don't forget your monitoring system, an audit and inspection of the documentation. You have the plan in place. Is this being audited to check that it is still in process? Is it running? Is it effective? Now, with any risk assessment, a monitor and review plan is mandatory. A risk assessment comprises of something that is inspected, monitored, and checked. And this comes down to your PDCA type of health and safety programming. Now, if you can appoint someone separately to audit, we suggest that since you don't want somebody who's doing the system to audit themselves. This can become a little bit counterproductive, as many of us, and we don't want to say it often, but we are biased to our own work. We feel that we've done a good enough job, even though we've overlooked things and it's human imperfection. Then we say it's done fine, and perhaps we might have missed something that could have been picked up by someone who is an outsider, who is just auditing the documentation, just auditing the plan. They don't really need to know about plumbing, but they do need to know about risk-based thinking or risk assessment or risk analogy. Then always include this type of comments, reporting systems, and plans in your OHS committee meeting. Now, I know from here on out, for the next few years, depending on the program that you are going to have in place, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed a lot of risk assessments out there. In other words, brand new risk assessments are being developed. Some risk assessments are being updated and changed, but a whole plan for the hygiene and health of our employees, of our clients, of those who may be affected by our work is going to be implemented from here on out. So COVID-19 obviously is now creating a new model for us to continue working on, and the management of COVID-19 as well as its effects are going to go on perhaps not just in this year, but it will stretch into the years coming out, and it's going to become a regular part of what we discuss as health and safety professionals, as well as you plumbers out there, because you are going to be on the front line of being affected by this bacteria or the virus. Now, if we are including it in our OHS committee, why not include a whole portion on illnesses and diseases? Remember, it's not just safety, it's occupational health and safety. So we should already have been doing this, but COVID-19 has really brought to the fore the need for having a proper risk-based thinking and management systems for illnesses in our industry. So please include the Legionella bacteria in your OHS committee meetings. Perhaps put it on the agenda already, change the documentation templates, and have a topic there for COVID-19 and Legionnaires disease, as well as any other waterborne disease that you are currently facing. Then, second to last, is keeping records of the precautions. Now, it goes without saying that the proof is not just in the eating, but it's in understanding how it was made. So for many of us, if it was made correctly and the system was designed properly, your outcome is always going to be quality. Since you've put a good effort into creating something, the quality of it on the output is generally going to be a lot more effective. So the records of precautions, such as your risk assessments, your safe working procedures, the method statements, registers and checklists, your audit as well as your audit results, should all be compiled into one plan. Perhaps keep a separate file for Legionella bacteria and the prevention of Legionella bacteria in our water systems as a separate file. So we're not trying to give you more work. It can be a digital file. You're welcome to do that. Many people are moving over to digital at the moment. Perhaps just risk assessments and checklists might be in a document form that can be uploaded to a cloud-based safety file. But it is good to understand that the actual risk assessment goes a long way in preventing the bacteria from becoming Pontiac's disease or Legionnaire's disease. And so it's important for us to understand this should become a natural part of every single plumbing system that is out there. And good record keeping is going to assist the auditor to see whether it is effective and maintained in your company. So don't forget the Legionella risk assessment, appointing a responsible person, doing your water temperature monitoring, descaling shower heads, all of those aspects of what we're discussing today on the prevention of Legionnaire's disease should actually have a document or a record, and this needs to be kept. Now, finally, we come to the appointing of someone that should be responsible, but notice we've got managerially responsible. So please do not leave it to someone who is just responsible for the installation of the plumbing itself. Put someone that is managerially responsible, because this person needs to be a decision maker on the actual plan. They should be leading or at the forefront of your risk-based programs or management plans. In fact, any occupational health and safety system should be guided by someone in management. If you do not have management's backing, most of these systems do not come to fruition, and they are not as effective as when people who have the backing of their managers are more successful in actually preventing risks as well as hazards and getting these things to be implemented on a regular basis. So a competent person who understands risk, so somebody perhaps who have gone through a HIRA course or just understands the basics of HIRA on identifying hazards and assessing the risk, as well as how plumbing should be installed and how this should function. So again, ensure the plumber who is on the program also understands plumbing and is a competent appointed plumber. The appointment must clearly outline what the duties and responsibilities are, and it should include a list of tasks to be performed and explain how this competency was achieved by the person who is appointed. And don't forget, competency is experience, knowledge, skills, but also behavior, performance, and goals of that person. So many times we leave it up to just 3 items. Is he experienced? Does he have the knowledge? Is he skilled? Yes, he's got a certificate, but what is his behavior toward health and safety? Will he be effective in carrying out this type of risk assessment and management plan? How has his performance been on health and safety in the past? And what is his goals toward health and safety in the future? This should make up our overall competency ratio or competency-based thinking for a person who is going to take on something like Legionnaire bacteria risk plans. So please, if you need any more information, again, reach out to us. We are there to assist you with anything that we have. Perhaps you've seen something in the Toolbox talk this morning that you would like to add to, or that you would like to ask about and request more information on. Again, just to remind you, next week we will have a document that is a little bit more comprehensive. Again, it's just a template, but it is a bit more comprehensive document on the things that we have discussed over the past 3 weeks, including the things that we are going to discuss next week on it is preventable and what type of solutions are out there that is currently preventing the Legionnaire bacteria and how can we get that into our systems at the moment. So once again, thank you very much for joining our Tuesday morning Toolbox talk. We want to say how much we appreciate the feedback that we are getting from all of you, safety professionals, plumbers, and those of you who are joining in just because you want more information on occupational health and safety.